we tie a specific amount of work or a specific amount of hours of work each week to a specific number on a paycheck, when that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And the thing that can trip you up there is you bring that mindset over into your creative work or building your own thing. And you work very hard, but then you get discouraged when you don't get the same amount of results, or you get substantially less until you pull the levers that allow you to make substantially more. I think it comes down to context and pain points quite often, where if you don't have the pain point of not getting results out of your hard work, then maybe you don't need to not work harder, right? It's completely dependent on the person's situation, where a lot of the people who are discouraged by working so hard and not getting anywhere with it, they're not realizing that within itself is a pain point that has to be solved. And so then they don't have a new direction to work. So they're not registering their hard work leading to a lack of results as a problem where you can create a solution and start working on that thing. So then when you come back to the hard work or whatever it is, you're moving from a higher vantage point so you can make better decisions toward that thing. In my life, I've noticed maybe 3 or 4 different macro periods of productivity or creativity where there's typically seasons where I feel lost. And those seasons of feeling lost or just not knowing what to work on next usually come after hitting some kind of goal that I've been pursuing for a long time. So all of these are cyclical. They're not exact, kind of like chapters in a book where each one resets. They each have their own goal. They each have their own highs and lows. That's how I like to view life from a bigger picture. But starts out as feeling lost. And then if you don't get distracted there, or you don't get bored, or you fill your time with the default activities that come after being bored, then you start to move into this phase of curiosity. So first phase, feeling lost. Second phase, curiosity. You start to pursue new interests or go down a new rabbit hole or study something, whatever it may be. And you're trying to experiment with different things until you find that one thing that you can't pull yourself away from. And then at that point, you kind of get pulled naturally into the season of intensity. And that's where you make a lot of the progress. For me, those are where the long 12-hour work days come into play. And it's when I build a new project, new product, new software, as I'm doing right now, completely new, right? Novel, new, feels very good, challenge is high. That's when fulfillment is also very high. And then once that reaches, there's like 2 options, right? You can fly too high and touch the sun and get burned a bit, and you learn a lot from that, or you stay aware during it and you realize, okay, I'm reaching this peak. I need to figure out how to sustain a higher baseline from this. And for me, it's when I hit some kind of new monthly high. In the gym, that could be a new weight. In business, that could be a certain amount of followers in a month, or whatever it may be. Money in a month, who knows? But it's a spike. For me, I know that's not sustainable. So along the way, I have to be thinking how I'm going to be consistent at this thing. And that's kind of the 4th phase, is the consistency phase, where what system can I build to maintain a higher baseline of the progress that I've made with this thing, while not trying to sustain this peak that I know is ultimately unsustainable if I want to do different things in my life. That's kind of why it's cyclical, because you start to feel lost in a sense, where you can work hard and try to push through it. And maybe there are some situations where you can sustain a very high baseline, and that's the singular thing that you do. But for me, I tend to desire to drop back down to some kind of lifestyle that I can maintain. For me, it comes with time, where in the past, I still do. I try things. If I have a very strong desire, I allow myself to try them at least once. I'm also very aware that if I don't invest energy into that thing, then I'm probably not going to enjoy it as much as if I just did it one time. So for something like jujitsu, I never really tried that one specific thing, but I would try it. I'd take a few classes, and then if I didn't like it, or I didn't see it fitting inside of my lifestyle, then I'd be quick to quit that thing if it impacts or takes away from my higher priority goals. So for me, training, lifting weights in the gym, that's always just been a top priority. Like when I would get into running, that's something that I did for a decent amount of time, and I did enjoy it. But I couldn't find the balance of running with training, with work, with social time. I could fit it in the morning, but it just, there's a lot of moving pieces when you decide to fit something new into your day. And nutrition, training, all of the things that you already have inside of there. If you are a curious person that likes to acquire these skills, it's very useful to do because you can pull some kind of principle or lever or lesson out of it to apply to other domains of your life to kind of fill it from the thing that it was missing, that was making you want to run or do jujitsu in the first place, and get that out of your system. Because the more you try and experiment with these things, the more you realize, the more you can approach those new desires with a better perspective. And shiny object syndrome, to me, isn't something that is bad at all. You just have to be able to refocus during that, or you need to be able to maintain your priorities during that. And when you're doing something creative work has a very, it has a lot more opportunity to find and leverage those high priority things. Where let's take a social post for an example. If you're an author, you're a musician, you don't have to be a quote unquote content creator. If you have any kind of work that you want to spread, social media is a decent way to do that. And with social media, if you post one thing and it is very good, then that post can do better than 1,000 other people's posts that went out today, and you can do quite well with that thing. So that's the first thing, is try to adopt a mindset that allows you to at least search for those higher leverage things. Because while you're doing the work, then you'll be able to identify them. Because if you aren't necessarily looking for them, they may just pass you by, and you may not realize that this could lead to an exponential event of a lot of progress in that specific amount of time. When it really came to me is when I started to remove a lot of what I would call my bad habits, which were the video games, which were the Netflix. So started going on walks, and I would listen to audiobooks during that time, and started to notice like all of these ideas were starting to pop into my head that never had before. It was just a weird realization of like, wow, I actually have the ability to generate good ideas that sound unique to me. And with those ideas, I've realized the power of them later is that those can fuel different aspects of your creative work. So that's all to say, and to wrap around, that I believe productivity is highly dependent on creativity, and that when you separate them, both of them lose their impact to quite some degree. Where, to give an example, if I'm writing a book or I'm creating any kind of a project, it doesn't matter what kind of a project is, that project, my mind expands to fill the context of that project. So when I'm on a walk, or I'm making time for creativity, or when the default mode network in my brain is activated, where you're at rest, you're not focused on work, that's like shower thoughts, when ideas just pop into your subconscious or into your conscious. Those ideas that happen during the creative period are usually the things that are higher leverage and apply directly to the project that you were building during your productivity periods.